What is up guys, Taiki here. Today I'll be discussing the art of managing risk and emotions, as well as how to deal with stress. So if you like the content, please like and subscribe and leave a comment in the comment section below. So that's going to be the agenda of the video. I'm not going to be talking about particular farms per se, but I'll be more discussing how I approach the markets, and maybe you can take away some key pointers. Maybe it helps, maybe it doesn't. But just sharing my thoughts. Just because, when the markets are red, it's really hard to act rational. And I argue that whenever we make mistakes with crypto, life, anything, it's because we're not thinking rationally. So I do have ways in place to think about, okay, how can I minimize mistakes and how can I make clear-headed decisions? So I don't really claim things such as the markets are wrong or I'm right and that they're wrong, right? I often see the sentiment of oh, the markets are wrong, my bags are going to go higher, this 30% dip is the markets are rational. But maybe you're wrong, right? You always have to be open to the idea that I'm wrong, that you're wrong. And at the moment that you claim that you're better than the markets is the moment you lose. Whenever I invest, trade, farm, or whatever, I often think of it as a battle between me and myself, right? Because my goal is to make good decisions, and I believe in my strategy, and I believe that over time, if I keep making good decisions, I'm going to make money, right? And that's kind of simple, right? I might not make the most money, right? I might not outperform the people buying Dogecoin, right? Or like dog coins, but I have my own way of approaching the markets, and I believe that this is a sustainable winning strategy, and I'm just going to keep doing it, right? Because it's worked in the past, and I don't think it's going to stop working in the future, right? But I could be wrong, right? So I always have to keep an open mind that, okay, maybe the L1 thesis might be wrong, maybe this particular thesis is wrong. You always have to be open to potential counter arguments. So I know you guys get tired of me talking about poker, but I feel like I do have to talk about poker just because it really has helped me with my transition from poker to crypto, and just managing risk and whatnot. Because I feel like when you invest money and whatnot, your relationship with money kind of changes. Because when I hate spending $3 for guac at Chipotle, right? It's just oh my God, this is ridiculous. Avocados are not that expensive. But, whenever I make a bluff on the river in poker, it's $1,000 bluff. It's yeah, I would make that 100% of the time. It's super plus EV, right? Even if I do lose that money. So you kind of have to flip your mindset when it comes to trading and farming. So similarly, maybe I don't like spending over $25 for dinner, but if I'm gonna enter a few $1,000s into a Ponzi farm, it's oh yeah, I do that all day. I mean, it's kind of ridiculous to say it like that, but it kind of is true. So when my success in poker started when I just stopped thinking oh, I'm better than everyone else. I just approached poker as a game, where I study, I work hard, I execute, right? And if I execute, I believe in my own strategy, and mathematically, I'm just guaranteed to win money over time. So, and you also have to be self-aware with your, what you're good at and what you're bad at, right? Because, for example, I'm bad at trading, right? I'm just not good at TA, not good at leverage trading. So I just don't touch it. I don't have to. I just focus on what I'm good at, which is, just farming. And as all humans, I try to be rational at all times, but I am irrational, right? I mean, when particular coin goes up 3x, I'm super euphoric at the top, right? And then when a token dumps 60%, I'm damn, what am I doing with my life? I'm contemplating my life decisions. But irrationality is the worst drug, just because that's when we make the most mistakes. So our goal is to minimize irrational thinking and try to be a humble farmer. So I want to share some excerpts with you from a book called Market Wizards. This is a book, it's kind of an old book, and the author interviews a bunch of Wall Street veterans and top traders and kind of goes over how they succeeded in the markets. And the general story, it's all the same, right? I mean, these smart traders, they lose everything at the beginning, and then they learn from those mistakes, and they become just giga chads, right? They just become the biggest chads of Wall Street. So I think this is an excerpt from Paul Tudor Jones, one of the investors or traders that this person interviewed. I read this a few weeks ago, so it might be someone else, but I think the idea is what's more important. If you have a losing position that is making you uncomfortable, the solution is very simple. Get out, because you can always get back in. There's nothing better than a fresh start, right? And I feel like people get too married to their bags, right? And people just get too attached to it. But sometimes the best thing you can do is to sell all of your bags and just reevaluate your portfolio from a fresh start, right? Because I feel like when you buy something, you're just psychologically attached to it. and you're just going to be overly bullish that token just because you bought, right? And maybe you're not being completely rational. But if you sell everything, I mean, you can always buy back in, right? There's nothing wrong with selling everything, like this morning, doing more research and then buying back in later, right? Maybe it goes up 3% higher, but like, who cares, right? If that decision of selling everything helps you build more conviction, then maybe that was like a 3% loss, I guess, that was worth it, right? And maybe the thing keeps going to zero and like you got away because you made the decision to de-risk. And don't be too concerned about where you got into a position. The only relevant question is whether you are bullish or bearish on that position that day. Always think of your entry point as last night's close, right? It doesn't matter like when I got into a coin. It doesn't matter when your friend got into a coin. The only thing that matters is, are you bullish or bearish, right? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. That's all you need to worry about. And once you start worrying too much about, oh yeah, like this guy is up like 3x, he's gonna dump on me. Well, like maybe that's not the best way to think about it, right? The only thing that you need to think about is like, is this undervalued? Can this thing go up? Like, how much risk am I taking? And am I bullish? Am I bearish, right? It's pretty simple if you think about it that way. And the most important rule of trading is to play great defense, not great offense. Every day, I assume every position I have is wrong. I know where my stop risk points are going to be, and I do that so I can define my maximum possible drawdown. I feel like everyone has to do this, right? And this is why I always talk about managing risk, not taking on too much risk, right? Because even though I have a conviction in my farms and like altcoins, it's not like that big a size in my portfolio, right? Bitcoin and Ether are like much larger positions than any of my other farming positions. Just because, like I have to assume that like my opinions are wrong, right? Like what if I bet the entire farm on like whatever farm or coin and it goes to zero, right? You just get wrecked. And if you believe that this asset class is here to stay for the next 10, 20, 30, 40 years, like the only way to not make it is just getting rugged or liquidated or just betting your net worth into something that ends up going to zero. So no, don't be a hero. Don't have an ego. Always question yourself and your ability, right? Like I'm not smart. You're not smart. We're all dumb. We're all dumb. Like, just assume that you're not smarter than markets and just try to understand the markets, try to understand narratives, try to understand like how much risk am I actually taking on, and just slowly grow your portfolio that way. And people always want like 10x's like in like a week or whatever, but like you don't really have, like you have to have a longer time horizon, at least in my opinion. Or I have a longer time horizon, right? So I don't really care about like writing Ponzi's like every single day. So this is a really good question that's helped me with my portfolio construction over time. But the question is like, if you converted your entire portfolio into stables, would you buy back in with the same percentage points? So for example, let's say you're like 50% ETH, 30% Solana, like 20% Luna or something, right? random numbers. But if you sold everything right now, like would you enter back with the same ratio? Well, and most of the time, like whenever I talk to anyone, the answer is no, right? Most of the time, people are taking on way too much risk. Most of the time, people don't have enough stable coins, and most people, they're just like, they have no idea what the hell they're doing, to be blunt. So I think you should ask yourself this question every single week or at the beginning of every month or something, right? Because if you think about it, like I love how I've constructed my portfolio, but if I were to start from zero, maybe I would buy more ETH, right? Maybe I would buy less Bitcoin. Maybe I would have more stables. It's always a question you have to ask yourself because, you should always look at your portfolio from a macro perspective, right? And not just worry about like, oh, like, am I going to miss this pump or something? So, and like there's always these instances of, sometimes like one time there was a coin that became way too big in my portfolio, right? Like I bet pretty big. I bet like 10% or something. It went up a lot, and it just became like like 30% of my bag. So like it like flipped my Bitcoin position. And even though I was bullish, I was like, okay, like like I'm way too like this is occupying my headspace. Like I can't think about anything else. Like even when I'm researching, I'm constantly checking the price of XYZ token, not actually XYZ token, right? I mean this can be any token, right? Whatever token. And if you understand, if you're self-aware that a particular position is taking over your headspace, it makes you less productive in it makes you less productive in other areas of life, which is going to make you a worse trader, farmer, etc. So maybe you just cut the size and reevaluate, right? And if you are convicted, maybe just buy back. Who cares, right? Like you don't have to have this diamond hands mentality, and like who cares? Like I'm paper hands all the time, right? I'm a self-proclaimed paper hander. Like, it is what it is. Lastly, I'll go over choice overload and stress. So this is a marketing term. I studied marketing in college. And choice overload is a phenomenon where, when you have too many choices, it just becomes like too overwhelming. Essentially, this is a bad example. Actually, let's kind of move on. So in other words, like having too many options crowd your judgment, get you stressed. It often leads you to make the most basic decision, or like don't make a decision at all, and it doesn't take into account all variables. So like I feel like people that are stressed, there are people that are like managing like 30 positions at once, right? They have like 2% allocations in like 30 farms because they're super bullish, like 20 ohm forks or something, right? And like at the end of the day, like you have to ask yourself, like, what are you doing, right? Because like, are you even convicted in your bags if you have 30 positions? Like for me, like I generally have like less than 10 positions at all times, because I can manage those positions. Like that way I can allocate more time into research. And if you do have 30 positions, like it's going to be near impossible to like keep up with the fundamentals, keep up with all the news, and it's just gonna just make you underperform, right? And maybe if you only gave yourself a rule of holding, let's say, 10 coins or something, maybe you end up betting bigger on the thing that actually has that fundamentals. And that way you're like spending less time managing, like keeping up the news, and you're spending more time into building conviction, doing more research, so you do get to identify these opportunities that that you might want to enter in the future. And the second problem, or I guess one of the major problems, is that or I guess stress really takes on two forms: worry and the biological fight or flight response. Our brains have a limited capacity for processing information. If your mind is preoccupied with worry, that worry takes up most of your decision space, and you don't have enough capacity left to perform effectively. In other words, simplify your portfolio, simplify your decision making. Me personally, I don't even interact with MetaMask like every day, right? I mean, most of my farms are set and forget, and I just check on my farms like every other day, and I'm like, okay, cool, I have more tokens, and it's really that simple. Farming doesn't have to be entering Ponzi's, right? I mean, we all love our Ponzi's, like I love my Ponzi's and stuff, but farming can just be simple as finding a coin you like and just slowly accumulating it via stable coins or something, right? And lastly, I want to go over my notes on the desk, because I think it's useful to have like notes on your desk. I have some notes here that I'll go over, just so like you read it and you see it every day. So it's a way for the past rational version of myself sending a message to my future irrational version of myself. So as you can see, I have some notes here, right? And I'll go over, the notes I have under my armpit here. Apologies for the very dirty desk, humble farmer. I don't have enough money to, buy soap or something, but let's start from the left side actually. So money lost is an investment in my edge that yields a return over time. Okay, and these are poker notes, but I think it like really translates well to just farming in general. I've actually had these on for like a year straight. So like whenever you make or lose money, right? The important thing is like to learn from your mistakes, right? Because I mean, I've lost money before. I mean, we've all lost money before, right? But I've learned from those mistakes, and that those lessons that I've learned contributes to, I guess, my edge over time, right? Because for example, like I lost money on XYZ farm, and through learning from those mistakes, I pledged to not enter those types of farms ever again, and to only focus on ABC farms or something, right? And you have to think about it that way. And then this is a big one, like where does my EV come from? Like where does your EV stands for expected value, but like you can rephrase this to be like, where does my edge come from, right? I often get hate from like being bearish own forks, right? Because I'm like, these have no fundamentals. And then people are like, wait, like if you're a farmer, like who cares, right? But my argument is that like my edge doesn't come from flipping own forks, right? Because to be successful at flipping own forks, you have to be in front of your screen all the time, keep track with new launches, and enter them in the first couple of hours, and then sell into people that enter later, seeing these high APYs, right? I mean, it's kind of how it works usually. Some last longer than others. Some actually lasts like in like a few hours, but it's generally like the rule of own forks. Not all own forks, right? Like 95% of new own forks that's being launched every single day. And that's not where my edge is, right? My edge comes from doing research, fundamentals, building conviction, and just having conviction and accumulating, bullish bags, right? Like my edge didn't come from own forks. My edge comes from like DeFi kingdoms, for example. And then lastly, making mistakes is part of the learning process. Like we're all students, we're all new to crypto. Like we don't, we honestly, like I don't know what the hell I'm doing. Like you don't know what the hell you're doing. So if you're not learning from your mistakes, then like how can you adapt, right? Like you don't want to be the guy that like bag held in 2018, and you pledged that you're going to sell the top in 2021 or 2022, But if you're trying to sell the top, then like maybe that's not the best way to approach it, right? Maybe you just like slowly de-risk over time or something, right? Making mistakes is part of the learning process. In summary, manage risk, right? Just don't get wrecked, don't get rugged, don't get liquidated. It's okay to make mistakes. But it's not okay to not learn from them, right? It's okay to sell at a loss. Like, you're not trying to impress anyone, right? Like, it doesn't matter. Like, no one cares if you sell 50% up or like 100% up or 10x up, right? Sure, you can collect some Twitter clout or something, but at the end of the day, like, no one really cares. Lastly, oh yeah, and also like, we're in December. If you take a loss, lower your taxable income, right? It's something that people don't think about. I mean, there's no wash trading in crypto, where like, let's say if you're down like $1,000 on like buying Bitcoin, you can sell that Bitcoin, realize the $1,000 loss, and just buy back at the same price, and then you can lower your cost basis, and then report that you lost $1,000 in Bitcoin, right? So you can do that too. And what am I doing? Like, I'm just sitting on my hands. I don't really enter new farms nowadays. I just have high conviction farms that I stick to. I look for new opportunities, do research, earn yield, and I feel like that farming is pretty simple, right? I mean, I feel like other people make farming to be like this thing that you always have to be entering new ones, right? With these high APRs, but I'm past that, right? I used to be that guy in April and May, right? Back to the Polygon days. Like, I was just a total degen, but nowadays, like, I understand that like those strategies don't scale, and I'm more focusing on high conviction fundamental bets and positioning myself for 2022, right in Q1. So that's how I think about it. I think that's the end of the video. Yeah, I think that's the end of the video. Hopefully this video kind of helps. These types of videos are generalized, and maybe only parts of the lessons only apply to you. But I do think it's important to think about your portfolio holistically, right? And it's important to understand how much money you have and whatever assets. It's important to have conviction, right? Because it's hard to have like 50x's if you don't have a conviction, right? Because how do you know when to sell it at 5x, 10x, 20x, whatever? So thank you guys for watching. Have fun farming out there. Be safe farming out there.